Hello and welcome to ITV News Meridian.
Tonight's headlines in the southeast. £5 million worth of cocaine is seized at Sheerness port. The National Crime Agency launches an investigation.
A trip to the tip, why you'll still need to book a place from now on, and fears it could lead to an increase in fly tipping.
If you've then got to sit down, log on and find a space, I think some people will find that as an excuse to go and fly tip. So yes, I think there's a real risk that we may see an increase as part of this policy.
I've been on the water, and later I'll tell you why this buoy could make swimming a lot safer.
Simple things, where have you gone?
And the 11-year-old busker from Hove who's raised thousands for the homeless. Good evening. A major crime investigation is underway tonight after cocaine with a street value of £5 million was found in a container at Sheerness port.
Yes, a container with 55 kilograms of drugs came from South America and was found by Border Force officers working with the National Crime Agency. Well, it's the second time in 2 months that large drug shipments have been seized in Sheerness. Well, Joe Cosham has the latest from the port in Sheerness.
Well, Border Force officers and the National Crime Agency found the packages that were wrapped in tape and concealed in a fan motor space that had arrived from South America, thousands of miles away. Officers estimate that it would have had a street value of around £5 million if it had made it that far. Now, as you say, it's the second seizure in the last month. Just before Christmas, 7 people were arrested and charged following another National Crime Agency operation, which ended with 1.2 tonnes of cocaine being seized. The drugs were found hidden among a shipment of bananas, and that haul is thought to be worth around £90 million. Now, the two seizures are not linked at this stage, but in terms of the most recent seizure, that was on Sunday. They've got the drugs, but they haven't arrested anyone. They haven't found the people responsible for these drugs arriving in Sheerness. Now, Keith Ranson from the National Crime Agency says they're working harder to keep up because of an increase in demand for the drugs.
Organised crime globally, including drug traffickers, are using sophisticated technologies and techniques to get their illicit commodity into the UK market. And the UK has the largest heroin and cocaine markets in Europe. And so the National Crime Agency, with its partners, is working hard to keep up in order to continue to suppress that threat.
Keen to keep on top of the drug smugglers then. And I've been speaking to people at grassroots level today who say that they've seen that increase in demand as well for drugs. Lennox Rogers is a former gang member. He now runs the Refocus project in Dartford, which works with families and supports them and protects young people from getting themselves into knife crime and drug crime. And he says that actually it won't stop these gangs from trying to smuggle in these drugs because of the demand is so high. He says actually they're allowing for some shipments to be caught. Here's why.
If they haven't caught drugs from Sheerness before, it doesn't mean that none was getting through. You know, sometimes gangs allow drugs to get caught. I wouldn't have said they would have allowed a big shipment like that to get stopped, but sometimes they allow drugs to get caught so that they can other shipments can get through elsewhere.
Well, those two shipments obviously concern Sheerness. Over in Canterbury today, a man was sentenced to 9 years in prison for smuggling in 45 kilograms of cocaine in Dover. Rafael Chaka, he's been given a significant jail term, indicating how serious the authorities are taking this, and it's sending a message out to any drug smugglers out there that if you do try to get drugs into the country, you won't be getting off lightly.
Joe Cosham reporting there from Sheerness.
And there's more on that story and the rest of the day's news in the southeast throughout the day and evening on our website. Go to itv.com/Meridian.
An investigation has been published into a fatal air accident at the Headcorn Aerodrome in Kent. Angus Buchanan was killed in the crash. He had been taking part in a formation display last May. Well, the Air Accidents Investigation Branch concluded his World War II biplane entered a deadly spin, most likely due to the pilot applying too much pressure or not centralising the rudder.
A drunk driver who had taken cocaine before crashing his car into a garden wall in Crawley has been jailed. Dash cam footage showed David Head reaching speeds of nearly 75 miles an hour in a 30 zone. He travelled through red lights and mounted the curb. One of his passengers suffered life-threatening injuries. The 42-year-old from Haywards Heath has been sentenced to more than 2 years.
A Brighton man who threatened and racially abused a charity shop worker has been jailed. 52-year-old Alex Austin was arrested after persistently harassing a woman at an Age UK shop. He's been sentenced to 12 weeks and given a 12-month restraining order.
The RSPCA is appealing for information after a puppy was thrown over a fence in Kent. The 5-month-old lurcher was found badly injured and dumped in a garden in Queen's Gardens in Dartford on Monday. Animal rescue officers say his wounds are consistent with dog fighting and he's being cared for. A CCTV image shows the moment he was thrown over a fence.
Awful story. Now, the rules on masks in schools changed again today, with the requirement for face coverings to be worn in secondary school classrooms dropped. It's the first step towards easing Plan B restrictions.
Our social affairs correspondent Christine Olsford is in our newsroom. Christine, what's been the reaction of schools and pupils to today's changes?
Well, no one is in favour of face masks being worn in the classroom unless it's absolutely necessary, because it makes communication between children and their teachers and classmates so much more difficult. But at the same time, of course, the virus is still circulating widely in the community, and there are concerns from some schools about whether this is all happening too quickly with little notice. Now, at some schools like this one in Sussex, masks will be staying in lessons for now.
Our priority is about keeping our community safe. We still have a high level of infections in this area. In our school, we had 45 students missing yesterday because of COVID. We had a significant amount of teaching and support staff absence. We cannot afford to retract from wearing the masks at this point in classrooms.
Well, interestingly, many pupils here are backing the move, particularly those who are preparing to sit exams in the summer. They say they simply can't afford to miss out on learning.
We should keep them on because we're already under so much pressure with the loss of learning time. And with our GCSEs coming up so quickly in just a few months, it's really crucial that everyone's in school and in lessons.
It not only keeps us, the students, safe, but also the teachers, which we really need coming up to our GCSEs.
If wearing masks is the precautions we need to take in order to protect our community, then that's what we must do.
And Christine, the rules for schools change again next week, don't they?
Yes, they do. They'll be changing at the same time as the requirement for masks in theatres and shops will also be dropped. So the need for masks to be worn in busy school communal areas like dinner halls and corridors, that will go. But again, some head teachers are already saying they need to make their own decisions, and it makes a lot of sense to keep them while we're still in the winter months.
OK, Christine Olsford in our newsroom, thank you.
A former Lieutenant Commander who served in the Royal Navy has said a review into the treatment of LGBT veterans is well overdue. The government announced an independent inquiry yesterday. Well, Craig Jones from Brighton has now set up a charity supporting military personnel thrown out of the armed forces.
It was quite literally a disgraceful end. If I had been caught, I would have been marched down the gangway by two Royal Navy military police officers. I would have been interrogated, arrested, sent to court-martial, which you can probably imagine is and was a devastating blow to so many people. I was very lucky not to be caught.
You're watching ITV News Meridian here in the southeast. Thanks for your company this evening. Coming up.
If you thought last night was cold, could tonight be even colder? We certainly haven't got much cloud to stop the temperatures dropping. I'll have your full forecast.
And for more on all of today's stories, go to itv.com/Meridian. You can call us on 0808 1010 095. And remember, you can also follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. Now, it's been another dramatic week in politics, to say the least, with continued allegations that parties were held at Downing Street during lockdowns when the rest of the country had been ordered to stay at home. Well, ITV's Tonight programme this evening asks whether Boris Johnson can survive as Prime Minister. The programme hears what we can expect from Sue Gray, the civil servant charged with investigating the growing number of alleged parties.
What we can expect from her report is that she will set out, as best she is able to, the facts that she's ascertained about what events took place, who attended them, who organised them, but she can't be the judge, as it were. Other people are going to have to then make their judgment about where responsibility sits and what actions people need to take as a result.
He's a great survivor. He has Houdini-like qualities of escaping very difficult circumstances, but this is no doubt the most difficult one I think he has ever faced.
Well, you can see more on the Tonight programme. Boris Johnson is the party over here on ITV from 7:30 this evening.
And before that, the ITV Evening News Hour continues with the national and international news at 6:30. To London now and Mary Nightingale.
Coming up on the programme, accusations of bullying and blackmail by Downing Street to get Tory rebels to back the Prime Minister. On another difficult day for Boris Johnson, the PM says he isn't aware of any evidence for those claims, but he will investigate if it comes to light. Back to the office as Plan B COVID rules begin to lift in England. And you've not got mail, how staff shortages are still causing postal delays. Do join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
We certainly will. Now to Kent County Council, it's called a household waste recycling centre. To everyone else, it's the tip. And since lockdown, if you wanted to go, you had to book an appointment, usually online.
Well, now the council has voted to make that booking system permanent, leading to fears it might lead to an increase in fly tipping, as Tony Green now reports.
This is the new normal in Kent. Since lockdown, a trip to the tip or recycling centre is strictly by appointment only. The temporary measure has now become permanent after a public consultation attracted a record response. And although 45% of people weren't positive about having to book a slot, 49% were.
It works so well. We found that in lots of the sites, we've got 18 sites around the county. A lot of the sites, it actually stopped queuing. And a lot of people like that. They don't like the hassle of being crowded or whatever. And of course, the staff could help people more.
So are you confident that this won't lead to an increase in fly tipping?
I'm personally confident of that, yes, because I haven't seen any evidence of that. People naturally want to do the right thing.
Representing landowners, the CLA has reservations about having to make appointments.
What people want is something easy, something simple. If it's raining, actually the sun comes out, you want to go and clear the garden, you want to get in your car and take it straight to the waste site. If you've then got to sit down, log on and find a space, I think some people will find that as an excuse to go and fly tip.
Fly tipping at William Alexander's farm is a regular occurrence.
I understand the policy during the COVID times, but it is making it more difficult to use the facilities. So often you can't book the same day, so you have to plan ahead and load up your vehicle to go. And this waste here is all domestic. It could all have been taken to a tip, and it was probably just too difficult for somebody to bother.
Here in New Romney, users thought the system worked well, but that didn't mean it was always welcome.
I think you should just turn up whenever you like. Sometimes I've come and just been the only one here, so no, I think just go back to normal now.
You have to think ahead when you want to go. Not like the old days, you could just turn up. So maybe it's easier for them because of what happened with the virus and so on.
It does work well if you're online. We're not. There's people that aren't.
Kent was the first local authority in the country to hold a consultation to make what were temporary changes permanent. But in a survey carried out on behalf of DEFRA, more than half of all councils said they'd be doing the same. So what's happening here could end up happening all across the country. Tony Green, ITV News, New Romney.
Well, it's certainly a talking point, isn't it? And we've been asking for your experiences of the household waste recycling system. And here's what some of you had to say. Now, Susan Holloway has had a good experience. She says, we've been using the Mansden site, very efficient, easy to book, more than one slot, no queues, and the staff are very helpful.
That's good news there. Then, well, Misha Williams says, can't see the problem, very easy to book, just go online and book your slot. Only difference than before is you need to state a time you are going. Easy.
And Pete Ash says about the booking system, did anyone really expect them to stop doing it after giving them the power?
Yeah, good point there. Well, Deb Goss says, really bad move. This is only going to lead to more fly tipping in our country lanes.
Well, thank you for letting us know your thoughts. And you can, of course, continue the conversation on our social media pages.
Well, here's another way really to reduce the need to go to a tip, because did you find yourself looking around the house when all the Christmas decorations came down a couple of weeks back and thinking, not only does it look a bit bare, it could also do with freshening up?
I was pretty relieved when the decorations came down. You get fed up with them after a bit, don't you?
I just saw the dust, that's all I could see.
Well, there are concerns too many of us throw out furniture because we fancy a change when it could have more life left in it.
Well, campaigners say too many flat pack items are considered disposable and end up in landfill rather than recycled or reused. James Wester has been investigating.
A permanent fixture built to last, or something more temporary. The furniture in our homes doesn't always stand the test of time when we decide to redecorate. And speaking to people in Ashford, it's tempting to have a new look.
Get satisfaction out of it, especially when you achieve something out of it, yeah. And it's therapeutic when you're painting as well.
I used to, years ago, but my son's a painter and decorator, so I leave it to him to do now.
I did it about 10 years ago in a listed building in Folkestone, which went really well. Took about a year to do, so completely gutted it and redid it, so it was great.
Research shows across Europe the UK is second only to Germany for how much it spends on giving homes a makeover. Our living rooms will be redecorated on average once every 2 years. And our bedrooms will also get a makeover every 2.5 years. Sales of home office furniture have increased during the pandemic. The average person spends £330 a year on redecorating. But there is concern over how often that includes swapping furniture that still has life left in it.
We have hundreds of charities that see the value in taking products that someone is discarding because they've changed the colour of the kitchen or the colour of the living room or got a new bedspread and want to change the bed and the side tables and everything else. One person's view of what is economic to reuse and what is disposable is different to the person that doesn't have the means to buy those new items. And that's why our vision is that everyone should be able to have a sustainable household, sustainable in monetary terms, but also in environmental terms.
I think the first thing I'm going to do is remove the lid off its hinges, and you know it's old when you have to use a flat screwdriver.
TV handyman Tibby Singh is well known for his love of reusing old furniture.
Basically, I think fast furniture is inexpensively made and cheaply sold. These products aren't made to last, because if a company made a product that was unbreakable and last a lifetime, then they wouldn't get a resale. So I guess it's a bit of a business strategy as well. But I'm a big believer of waste not, want not, and whenever I get the opportunity to recycle or upcycle something, I do to the best of my ability.
He hopes that in the same way cheaply made clothes seen by some as almost disposable are going out of fashion, so too will so-called fast furniture in favour of items we want to have in our homes for much longer. James Webster, ITV News.
Very good idea, isn't it? I just wish I could do DIY because I'm rubbish at DIY.
Well, don't look at me.
Oh, okay. You're not going to help me then.
If you haven't guessed, I'm also awful at DIY.
It's both of us then, aren't we? It's a shame.
Now, a device to monitor the levels of pollution in the sea has been developed and now launched by technology experts who have been working with a university in Sussex.
Yes, the buoy will collect data, and if the trial is successful, it could be rolled out elsewhere across the southeast. James Diamond has been out on the water to see just how it works.
Call it a sparkle or a glow. Chichester Harbour looks simply stunning in winter sunshine. Under the shimmer though, just what lies beneath the surface. This buoy aims to tell us. Paul, this looks like a giant barbecue really, but it could be a game changer in giving people information about the pollution in the water here.
Absolutely, yes. So what we're doing is measuring real time the quality of the water, the health of the water. We've got some sensors in the base that are sending the information from the sensors to the cloud, and using artificial intelligence it helps us build a profile of the actual pollutants and the stuff in this water.
Having been developed over the last year and tested partly in a paddling, the buoy was brought out of the jetty and, after a few tense minutes, lowered into the water.
Well done, guys.
You must be relieved.
I'm relieved, but I'm just so excited because now the real work starts.
So what's actually going to be happening? What is that buoy going to be recording?
So it's recording a number of different variables. So something called oxygen reduction potential, the pH, which most people will be familiar with, the alkalinity of the water, the electrical conductivity, the dissolved oxygen and the temperature.
Additional buoys have also been developed to test for things like E. coli, with the potential to gather a sample every 10 minutes. Up until now, testing the water quality here has taken time. The sample has needed to be collected manually. It's then sent off to a lab, and the results have taken days to come back. With this buoy, the data can be available instantly. Being an area of outstanding natural beauty, pollution of all kinds can leave an ugly mark on the water here.
Sewage is a major contributor to pollution, but here it's not the only thing. If you look around at the fields and the South Downs, any water that comes floods off through the farmers' fields, and it takes nitrates and phosphates from the fertilisers they use, and that ends up in the harbour too. And nobody's actually bothered to try and look at everything and see what all of those factors have in terms of the effect on the harbour.
By gathering that information, Sean and his team hope it will help industries deal with pollution. The data will eventually be available in real time for all of us, making the conditions clear when the water is not. James Dunham, ITV News, Chichester Harbour.
Now, that could be invaluable. Now, an 11-year-old from Hove has been using her love of singing to help the homeless.
Yeah, Scarlett Chapman was so alarmed by the numbers of people that she saw sleeping rough around Brighton and Hove that she's gone on to raise £3,000 for a local charity. Charlotte Wilkins has been to meet her.
Using her voice to make a change. The 11-year-old has been using her musical talents to raise awareness and funds for a local homeless charity.
I feel like no one should have to go through that, and I think all the people that are homeless are just such fighters, and I feel that what the Night Stop charity are doing is amazing.
It all began when Scarlett was just 8 years old, when she asked her parents why there were homeless people. A question which, for anybody, is not an easy one to answer.
We just literally had no words. It was a very odd question we felt to come from her at that moment, and we just didn't have an answer. And we were flabbergasted when the first thing she said, well, what can I do to help?
Scarlett spent her Christmas holidays busking and has since raised £3,000 for Sussex Night Stop, a charity which supports volunteers to open up their homes for short emergency stays for young people who are homeless or at risk of homelessness.
We often think about people on the streets when we think of homelessness. Of course, there's a massive hidden homelessness, which is sofa surfing. And that's they reckon about a third of young people have sofa surfed at some point in their life, which is dramatic.
It's not the first time Scarlett has busked to raise money for charity. ITV News Meridian filmed with her when she was just 9, when she raised thousands for Emmaus, her money helping to renovate accommodation for those in need. Scarlett's funds will now go towards recruiting and training more volunteers. So if there is an increase in youth homelessness, as experts are predicting, those vulnerable young people will be supported in the best way possible. Charlotte Wilkins, ITV News, Hove.
Well done, Scarlett.
Definitely, what a hero.
Such a good thing to do.
Brilliant, really is. You keep going, keep on singing. Now, if you've gone on a January diet, don't despair because you're not the only one. Now, this pair of armadillos, Patsy and Eddie, piled on 2 kilograms during the festive period. Keepers at Drusilla Zoo in Sussex are now promising to exercise them more and give them fewer treats. Now, I just have one question. How do you exercise an armadillo?
I'm not sure, but 2 kilograms, is that all they put on over Christmas?
No, I've got more for me, I'll tell you. But I just wonder, do they walk them around the zoo in
I'm not sure. Well, they're crunchy on the outside, soft on the inside, aren't they? A bit more squidgy on the inside at the moment.
They're just a little bit more squidgy. Now, at the weekend, we saw the devastating eruption of the underwater volcano in Tonga. Absolutely terrible pictures that we saw. And despite that eruption occurring about 10,000 miles away, it has been affecting the weather right here in the Meridian region. And Holly joins us now. They were awful pictures, which were quite frightening. And also quite frightening that volcano had an impact here as well.
Yeah, it just goes to show just how powerful it was. We can take a look now at the eruption itself. So can you see here that in the centre you've got the ash cloud, but you've also got a ring that extends around the outside, sort of propagating outwards. Now that is a shockwave, which is what happens when you have a sudden change in atmospheric conditions. That shockwave circulated the globe. Take a look at this. This is the pressure pattern recorded at Herne Bay over the weekend. Can you see that sudden leap in pressure and then a few hours later a sudden drop in pressure? That is the shockwave, which has travelled 10,000 miles around the globe. It took about 15 hours, reaching us here, then doing another lap, coming back round, a second wave recorded. And actually, for several days now, we've continued to see on our barometers just a little change in pressure as this shockwave continues to circulate the globe. I've never seen anything like it, just unbelievable.
Yeah, something so far away affecting us here.
That's right.
And the other thing affecting us here lately, obviously, is all this cold weather. Is it going to be frosty again tonight?
It is, and you know, it could be the coldest night of the season so
Not
far.
what we want to hear.
I know, I'm sorry. Take a look at these numbers. So this is, last night we got down to minus 2.6. The coldest night we've seen so far this season, minus 7.5. We could get a little bit colder than that tonight.
Okay, well, let's see just how cold it's going to be then. Here's Holly.
Feels like home, whatever the weather. Valent Boilers and Heat Pumps sponsors ITV Meridian Weather.
A cold and a frosty one to come for tonight, but on the flip side we do see more sunshine for tomorrow. Actually a very small chance of seeing a rogue shower perhaps for parts of Kent, maybe even something a little bit wintry for tonight, but I do think that'll be the exception rather than the rule. For most of us it is a dry picture. Let's look at the bigger picture then. You've got high pressure dominating the scene, keeping us settled, keeping us dry really, but giving us some cold nights initially, although I do think into the coming days we'll find more cloud feeding our way, and that will obviously change things by day, but also make any frost more patchy by night as well. But it is a cold one for tonight. Without much cloud around, temperatures fall away. As I say, a small chance of an isolated wintry shower, perhaps. Mostly though, it is a dry one. And temperatures fall down below freezing. We could even see the coldest spots getting something like minus 6 or minus 7 possibly for tonight. So a cold frosty start to tomorrow morning. You could even see a few shallow freezing fog patches, but again, for most of us that probably won't be the case. The sunshine then gets to work, beautiful blue skies overhead. We've got a lighter breeze around than yesterday and temperatures should just get a smidgen higher as well. Our high tide times, we've got Hastings at midnight 56 and again at 1:05 as we head into the afternoon. And here's the outlook. So, in general, I think more cloud as we push through the weekend and into the beginning of next week as well. There's still some sunshine to be had at times. Those winds still fairly light. Temperatures, though, never that high, 5-6 degrees. You'll notice, though, that by night with more cloud around, frost becomes much more patchy. Have a good evening.
Valent sponsors ITV Meridian Weather.
Thanks, Holly. Now, Meridian's political programme, The Last Word, is on after our late news this evening at 10:45. To tell us a bit more about it, here's Phil Hornby.
Yes, will the Prime Minister turn out to be a Remainer or a Leaver? That's the question that's dominated everything this week, and we'll be asking our panel. And while the heat is on Boris Johnson, we'll be asking what can be done to keep our energy bills down. Join me for The Last Word after the late news tonight.
Not to be missed, and Luke will bring you your late news. That's on at 10:30, so don't miss that as well. In just a moment, the ITV Evening News tonight with Mary Nightingale.
Yes, but from all of us here, thanks so much for your company this evening, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Have a good evening.
Bye-bye.